I never thought I'd be standing in my own hallway, trembling with rage, listening to my daughter-in-law plot my downfall. But there I was, frozen outside the guest bedroom door, hearing Claire's voice drip with false sweetness as she spoke to my grandson. "Don't worry, son. After Dad passed away, this house will belong to us." The words hit me like a physical blow. My hands clenched into fists at my sides. Ethan Jr.'s young voice piped up, bright and innocent. "Really, Mommy? The whole house?" "The whole house, sweetheart. Grandma is old. She won't need all this space much longer." I backed away from the door, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst through my chest. 4 months. It had been only 4 months since I buried my son, since I stood at James's grave and felt my world crumble, and now this. They really think I'll just hand over everything? Not a chance. And the transformation had been subtle at first. When James was alive, Claire had been the picture of a devoted daughter-in-law. She'd bring me tea, ask about my day, compliment my cooking. I'd trusted her. God help me, I'd actually believed she cared. I retreated to my bedroom, my sanctuary, and sat on the edge of the bed James and his father had surprised me with on our 20th anniversary. The photographs on my dresser stared back at me. James as a baby. James on his wedding day, beaming at Claire like she hung the moon. James in the hospital 3 days before the end, holding my hand and making me promise to take care of his family. I'd kept that promise. I'd opened my home to Claire and Ethan Jr. without hesitation. This house, the one my late husband and I had built together, the one we'd filled with love and memories, suddenly felt like enemy territory. The next morning, I found Ethan Jr. in the living room, jumping on my late husband's favourite armchair. The leather was already showing scuff marks from his sneakers. "Ethan, please get down from there." He looked at me with those wide blue eyes, so much like James's, but the expression was nothing like my son's had ever been. "Mommy says this will be my house soon. I can do what I want." My throat tightened. "Your mother is mistaken. Please get down." "Make me." He grinned, a cruel little smile that no 7-year-old should possess, and jumped harder. I heard Claire's footsteps before I saw her, that deliberate click of heels on hardwood that had become her signature around the house. She appeared in the doorway, phone already in hand, and I realized with a sick feeling that she was recording. "Ethan Jr., sweetheart, what's wrong?" Her voice was honey sweet, dripping with false concern. "Grandma's being mean to me. I was just playing." Claire's eyes met mine over her phone screen, cold and calculating. "Maggie, he's just a child. He's been through so much losing his father. Can't you find it in your heart to be a little more understanding?" I opened my mouth to respond, but she'd already turned the camera on herself, her expression shifting to one of weary sadness. "Living here has been so hard, you guys. My mother-in-law, she means well, but she's so strict. We just want a little corner for Ethan Jr. to feel at home, you know, after everything we've lost." She was live streaming, right there in my living room. She was painting me as a monster to strangers on the internet. "Turn that off." My voice came out harder than I intended. "Turn it off right now, Claire." She lowered the phone slowly, her mask slipping for just a moment. I saw the real Claire then, the one who'd been hiding beneath the grieving widow act. Her eyes were sharp, assessing, already calculating her next move. "I'm just sharing my truth, Maggie. If that makes you uncomfortable, maybe you should think about why." Linda found me in the garden that afternoon, yanking weeds with more force than necessary. My neighbour had been my friend for 15 years, through thick and thin. She settled onto the bench beside my flower beds, her weathered face creased with concern. I saw Claire's live stream. I didn't stop pulling weeds. "Of course you did. Half the neighbourhood probably did. Maggie, look at me." I sat back on my heels, dirt under my fingernails, exhaustion settling into my bones. Linda's voice was gentle but firm. "That boy is learning to manipulate you and his mother. I've watched it happen over these past months. And Claire." She paused, choosing her words carefully. She's not who you think she is. I know. The admission hurt. I know exactly who she is now. Then what are you going to do about it? That was the question, wasn't it? What was I going to do? This was my house, my home, built on decades of love and sacrifice. But Claire had my grandson. She had public sympathy. She had the narrative of the poor young widow and her child, oppressed by the mean old woman who couldn't let go. I'm going to fight, I said finally. I'm not going to let her steal everything James and I worked for. Linda squeezed my shoulder. Good. And I'm going to help you. And the next 2 weeks were a masterclass in psychological warfare. Claire live-streamed constantly, always with a sad smile and a carefully crafted story. She talked about how I controlled the thermostat, how I insisted on quiet hours, how I expected Ethan Jr. to follow house rules like he was a tenant instead of family. She never mentioned how Ethan Jr. had drawn on the walls in the hallway. She didn't talk about the vase he'd shattered, the one my late husband had brought back from Japan. She certainly didn't mention finding her going through my financial documents in my bedroom when she thought I was at the grocery store. But I documented everything. Every broken item. Every boundary crossed. Every lie she told her viewers. Linda helped me screenshot the live streams, helped me organize the evidence. She also started keeping a log of what she witnessed from her house next door. Today, 3 p.m. Ethan Jr. threw a baseball through the Collins kitchen window. Claire told him, "Don't worry, it'll all be yours soon anyway." Today, 5 p.m. Claire had 3 friends over without asking Maggie. They were discussing which rooms they'd redecorate when the time came. The evidence piled up, but Claire's campaign continued. She'd found her audience, people who loved the drama of a family feud, who took her side without question. Her follower count grew daily. Then came the day she crossed the final line. I'd been out having coffee with Mr. Hayes, my late husband's lawyer and a family friend for 20 years. When I returned home, I found Claire in the master bedroom, my bedroom, measuring the walls. "What do you think you're doing?" She didn't even have the grace to look embarrassed. "This room is too big for one person, Maggie. Ethan Jr. needs more space. I was thinking we could take this room and you could move into the guest room. It would make more sense." Something inside me snapped. All the grief, all the rage, all the frustration of the past 4 months came boiling to the surface. "Get out of my room. Maggie, be reasonable. Get out of my room." My voice was ice. Claire's eyes widened slightly, perhaps the first time she'd seen me truly angry, but she recovered quickly, reaching for her phone. "Are you hearing this?" She spoke to the camera, her voice trembling with manufactured emotion. "I just asked about rearranging some rooms, trying to make this work for all of us, and she's screaming at me. I said, 'Get out!'" Ethan Jr. appeared in the doorway, his face scrunched up in preparation for tears. "Grandma's being mean to Mommy." "Your mother," I said, my voice deadly calm now, "is in my bedroom without permission, trying to take what isn't hers, just like she's been doing since the day James died." Claire's mask cracked completely. Her face twisted into something ugly, something real. "You can't keep this house forever, Maggie. You're alone. You're old. This place is too big for you and everyone knows it. Why not just accept the inevitable and make this easier on everyone? Because this house is mine." Each word was a stone, hard and unyielding. "My husband and I built this home. We raised our son here. We poured our lives into these walls. You've been here for 7 years, Claire. 7 years of playing house, playing the perfect daughter-in-law, and now you think you can just take it all? James would have wanted his son to have this house." Her voice rose, shrill and desperate. "James wanted his son to have a home full of love and respect. You're teaching Ethan Jr. to be greedy, manipulative and cruel. That's not what my son would have wanted." Ethan Jr. started crying then, real tears this time, probably confused by the tension he'd helped create. Claire scooped him up, cradling him against her shoulder while keeping the phone trained on me. "You see this? You see how she talks to us? After everything we've been through? I'd had enough. I pulled out my own phone, my hands steady despite the adrenaline coursing through my veins. Let me show you something, Claire. Let me show your viewers what you don't want them to see. I started pulling up the photos, the drawings on the wall, the broken vase, the screenshot of her live stream from last week where she'd told her followers that I was losing my grip on reality and probably shouldn't be living alone. This is what you don't show them. This is the truth behind your sad widow story. Claire's face went pale. You've been spying on me? I've been documenting the truth. There's a difference. Linda's voice called from downstairs. Maggie, I brought those papers you asked for. Perfect timing. Linda appeared in the doorway, took in the scene and handed me a folder. Inside were printed screenshots, witness statements, and a timeline of every incident over the past 4 months. Claire's eyes darted between us, calculation replacing the shock. You can't prove anything. It's my word against yours, and I have thousands of followers who believe me. Actually, a man's voice came from the hallway. She can prove quite a lot. Mr. Hayes stepped into view, his silver hair and expensive suit lending authority to his presence. He'd been my husband's lawyer for decades, and he looked at Claire with the same disappointment I felt. Mrs. Thompson, I think it's time we discussed the legal realities of this situation. We moved to the dining room, a strange procession of tension and barely contained anger. Mr. Hayes spread papers across the table with methodical precision. This house, he began, his voice calm and professional, is owned entirely by Maggie Collins. It was never joint property with your late husband, as it was purchased before his birth. Upon his death, James's estate went through probate, as is standard. He left a trust fund for Ethan Jr. to be accessed when he turns 18, and some personal effects. The house was never part of that estate. Claire's jaw tightened. But we live here, we have rights. You live here as guests, at Mrs. Collins's invitation, an invitation that can be revoked at any time. She can't just throw us out on the street. What kind of grandmother? I can, and I will, I interrupted, my voice steady. But I'm not throwing you out on the street, Claire. I'm giving you 30 days to find somewhere else to live. That's more than generous, considering everything you've done. Everything I've done? She laughed, a bitter, ugly sound. I've been trying to survive. You have no idea what it's like, losing a husband, raising a child alone. I lost a husband too, Claire. And I lost my son. Don't talk to me about grief. The room fell silent except for Ethan Jr.'s sniffling. He clung to his mother's shoulder, and for a moment I felt a pang of sympathy for him. He was just a child, caught in the middle of adult machinations. Linda spoke up, her voice kind but firm. Claire, I've lived next door to Maggie for 15 years. I watched her welcome you into this home with open arms. I watched her grieve for her son while still trying to support you and Ethan Jr. What you've been doing these past months, it's not right. You know it's not right. Claire's phone was still in her hand, but it was no longer recording. Her live stream had ended. She looked around the room, at the evidence spread across the table, at the three of us united against her schemes, and something in her deflated. Where am I supposed to go? Mr. Hayes slid another paper across the table. James's life insurance policy left a substantial sum. You've had access to those funds for 4 months. Additionally, you have income from your remote work. You have options, Mrs. Thompson. You've always had options. You just chose this path instead. I watched emotions flicker across Claire's face. Anger, fear, calculation. Finally, resignation. Fine. The word came out hard and bitter. We'll go. But don't expect Ethan Jr. to forget this. Don't expect him to ever forgive you for choosing a house over your own grandson. I'm not choosing a house over anyone, I said quietly. I'm choosing respect and honesty. I'm choosing to maintain the home I built with my husband, the home your husband grew up in and loved. I'm choosing not to be manipulated and used. Claire stood abruptly, gathering Ethan Jr. into her arms. Come on, baby, let's go pack. As they left the room, Ethan Jr. looked back at me over his mother's shoulder. For just a moment, our eyes met, and I saw confusion there. Not anger, not the manipulation his mother had taught him, just a child's confusion at a world that had suddenly gotten complicated. My heart ached, but I didn't call them back. And the next 30 days were difficult but necessary. Claire live-streamed less, perhaps finally realizing that her narrative had crumbled. When she did go live, the comments had shifted. People who'd seen the evidence I'd quietly shared, people who'd heard Linda's testimony, people who'd started to question the story they'd been fed. This doesn't add up. Wait, she was lying about the house ownership? I feel bad for the kid, but the grandmother has rights too. I didn't engage with any of it. I didn't make my own videos or tell my own story to the internet. This wasn't about winning a public battle. It was about reclaiming my home, my peace, my life. Linda and I watched as Claire packed. She hired movers for the furniture she'd brought with her, though she kept trying to claim pieces that had always been mine. Mr. Hayes's presence during those final days kept things civil. The coffee table was a gift from James, she tried once. The coffee table was purchased by my husband and me in 1987, I corrected. James was 3 years old. Try again. She didn't. On the last day, as movers carried the final boxes to the truck, Claire stood in the doorway of what had been her home for 7 years. Ethan Jr. held her hand, his favourite toy truck clutched in the other. I bent down to my grandson's level, my knees protesting the movement. Ethan Jr., I want you to know something. He looked at me with those blue eyes so heartbreakingly like James's. I loved your daddy very much. And I love you. When you're older, when you understand things better, my door will be open. You'll always be my grandson, no matter what. For a moment, I thought I saw something soften in his expression. Then Claire's hand tightened on his shoulder, and the moment passed. Say goodbye to Grandma, Ethan. Goodbye, Grandma. They left. The door closed, and I stood in the sudden silence of my home, really and truly mine again. Linda appeared beside me, as she had so many times over the past months. You okay? I took a deep breath, looking around at the walls that held decades of memories. James's height marks from childhood still faintly visible on the kitchen door frame. The slight crack in the ceiling from the earthquake in '94 that we'd never bothered to fix because it reminded us we'd survived. The garden visible through the window, blooming with flowers I'd planted with my husband's help. I will be, I said finally. It's going to take time, but I will be. And that was 6 months ago. The house is quiet now, peaceful in a way it hasn't been in a long time. I've turned the guest room into a studio, finally pursuing the painting hobby I'd abandoned years ago. The walls Ethan Jr. drew on have been repainted, not to erase the memory, but to make space for new ones. Linda comes over every Tuesday for tea. Mr. Hayes stops by monthly to check on me, though the legal battle is over. Claire's livestream account went silent 2 months after she left. I heard through mutual friends that she'd moved 3 states away, started fresh somewhere new. I hope she's happy. I genuinely do. Anger is exhausting, and I've let most of mine go. But I won't let go of this house. Not now. Not ever. This home represents more than property or square footage. It represents love, sacrifice, partnership, and the life my husband and I built together. It represents my son's childhood and the values I tried to instill in him. Loss doesn't make me weak. Those who deceive and disrespect must face the consequences. This home is mine, as it always should be. Sometimes late at night, I walk through the rooms and remember. James learning to walk in the hallway, my husband laughing in the kitchen, Christmases and birthdays and ordinary Tuesdays that somehow became extraordinary simply because we were together. And sometimes, I let myself imagine a different future. One where Ethan Jr., grown and understanding, knocks on my door. Where we can build a relationship based on truth instead of manipulation, on love instead of greed. That door will always be open. But the house itself, the sanctuary I've fought so hard to protect, will remain mine. I've earned that right. I've paid for it in love and loss and the strength it took to stand my ground when everyone told me to just let go. This is my house, my home, my refuge, and I'm not going anywhere.